Hey dorks, just a quick message reminding you to head over to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast and give us a follow. We live stream when we record our new podcast episodes, and we're live streaming video game sessions on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time. We're playing super rad stuff like Among Us, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, Jackbox games, and Tabletop Simulator. Come hang out and play along with us. That's twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. Mind Gap Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. I'm Doug.
I'm Justin.
And joining us this week, a very special guest coming all the way from Libsyn. Please welcome Rob Walch.
Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you here. So exciting because, as you probably know, we use Libsyn, and we love it.
Libsyn, switching over to Libsyn was legitimately one of the best decisions we made as a podcast. And I'm not saying that just to kiss your ass.
You just like the little soapy emoticons.
That's it.
It's very true.
Yeah, they have their little emoticon that when you log in, they cosplay with him, and that has given me endless entertainment over the years.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, and we internally we like always are throwing out ideas. We're looking on calendars like, what's today? International, Build a Bear Day. Oh, could we do a cosplay?
How long does it take for them to whip? Like, if you guys find one, can they do it same day?
Oh yeah, the guy that creates them, he does them pretty quickly. Yeah, so he'll come up with some of them pretty fast. That's so cool.
That's impressive. That's a world I respect, because that's the kind of little Easter eggs I love throwing in just about anything I can do. So kudos. That's so exciting. We got a lot of great stuff to talk about, but before we do, a little bit of housekeeping. First things first, if you don't already, please check us out on Spotify. We are everywhere else you find your podcast, but don't forget to like and follow us on Spotify. Second, please check out our Discord server. Head on over to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. Down in the About section, you'll find a little button that says Discord. Click on that. Come join our Mind Gap family. We post a bunch of silly memes, we chat with each other, and we set up game nights. We have looking for group channels, and I say it every week, but I just love having a group of people to play games with. I never had that, and now I do, and it's the best, so come join us. Next up, don't forget to check out MindGap merch at redbubble.com. Head on over there, type in MindGap Podcast. You'll find the classic MindGap logo, as well as the wonderful, beautiful, cute little ghost logo that says, "I will haunt your butt." A classic one that you can have on just about any t-shirt, sweatshirt. If you want a painting of it, you can have that too. It's worth it. Support the podcast, get something cool in the meantime. And last but not least, we stream our episodes live on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Central, and also Saturday nights we do a live video game stream at twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. And I got to remember, we're doing... What do we got going on? I haven't decided yet what we're going to be playing.
Yeah, you
for
said
Saturday.
it was going to be a solo shot.
I think it'll be a solo show, so we'll have to see what I feel like doing. But come check it out. Hang out with us. Hang out with me. We're usually doing some silly stuff, playing some silly games, and we have a good time. That's twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. And with that, all of our stuff is done. And now we turn to Rob. Rob, my friend, thank you again for joining us. And what I love most about your title is VP of Podcaster Relations. That is such a cool title. What is it? What do you do, and how do you bring joy to this world?
My job is what I'm doing right now. Talking to podcasters.
Oh, friggin' cool
is my job. I mean, what kind of a job is that? That really is it. And then the other part of it's I try to help bring the destinations that we have. So you may have heard recently we added Samsung. Do you guys want to be on Samsung? Email me.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'll get you on Samsung Podcast, which is they just launched that this month. So
that's exciting.
So that's part of my job, is to help podcasters get their content out everywhere.
That's so amazing and so helpful, because it is it's a what's the word I'm thinking of? Justin, I didn't do my
slog.
vocal. There we go.
It's a slog sometimes to get to cut through all of the stuff that's out there. It is really hard to get noticed. So people who do that you're doing the Lord's work, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Here's a day in the life of a VP of podcast relations.
Yeah, what's that like?
I might get a call from Chris Shiflett from the Foo Fighters asking about his account, and then then I talked to the actor who did the voice from Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Clone Wars. Which then I got to talk with him, and then he sent in a recording to my son Porter, saying, "Hey Porter, make sure you eat your vegetables," in Obi-Wan's voice. So then I become cool dad.
What?
That's amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah. And then I get a call from Louis Anderson every now and then. He'll call.
Oh my God. Do you need an assistant? Because I will do it for free.
Okay.
It's a really cool job. We have some really, what's the best part? Some of these people are really cool. I mean, they're really fun people. I mean, Chris Shiflett's calling me. He's on the side of the soccer field with his kid and talking about podcasting. And this is like the great, one of the greatest bands of all time. And
yes.
Yeah. So it's fun. I think maybe my favorite phone call time though was Joe Rogan.
Oh, now you're talking Doug's language.
Okay, tell me more.
So a friend of mine, this is when Joe first launched his show. He said, "Hey, you have to go listen to Joe's show today. He's complaining about where he's hosting." So I go and I listen, and Joe's complaining, "Hey, sorry, the show's not getting out." So I find an email. I send an email off to him. And I said, "Hey, I'm with Libsyn. We host Mark Maron and a few other comedians I go you may have heard of. Would love to help you out." 15 minutes later, my phone rings, and I pick it up. I'm like, "Hello." And he goes, "Hey, this is Joe." I'm like, "Joe who?" He goes, "Joe Rogan." And I'm like, "Oh," well, I'm like, I didn't think you would call. I thought you'd have like an assistance call. He goes, "No." He goes, "I'm a geek." He goes, I do all this myself. So this is when he was launched.
Sure.
In the early days, he was doing it, and he's telling me how he was the first comedian with his own website and all of that stuff. So Joe's a cool guy.
That's really
Although
really
now
cool.
he's on Spotify only.
Yeah, which I gotta say, once that
wah.
happened, I actually heard a lot of people just say like, because I don't have Spotify, because I don't like Spotify and their practices towards artists, so I'm kind of like, I don't really like listening to them. But I think that's really cool because, I mean, podcasting, it's such an interesting medium, right? It's this opportunity, and like Justin said, I mean, there's countless podcasts out there, and there is something for everyone and then some. And I am constantly consuming podcasts whenever I walk my dog in the morning, whenever I'm cooking, whenever I am mowing the lawn, whenever I'm going to pick up my daughter at school and driving. Like, I'm constantly consuming podcasts. I was telling this to Justin last night in our production meeting, but I was like, the saddest part of my week is when I get through all of my podcasts for the week, and then I'm like, but I have the weekend and I have to walk my dog on the weekend. I was like, I gotta find something else. And then I find another podcast, and then I just burn through their back catalog. And then before you know it, within a matter of weeks, I'm in the same boat. I've added them to my slate of weekly podcasts, but now I'm like, I gotta find another one. And I go and I find another one, and I hear someone recommend something, and it's mostly comedians is what I like listening to, but
right.
Someone recommended The Dictators, just this deep dive into the dictators in history and what they were like. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Or there's, the Wolverine podcast, which is a wonderful audio play, or The White Vault, sort of a horror podcast. Like, just, there's something, of course, you've got your murder podcasts, which everyone seems to love, and all sorts of stuff. It's just such a beautiful medium, but also at the same time, there's a ton of them.
Oh no, there's podcasts that cover everything. There's one called the Chameleon Breeder Podcast. It's for people that breed chameleons, not people that even own them. I mean, you go to the subset of the subset. If you're owning chameleons, this show is not for you. No, this is for people that are breeding them. Go away, you owners of chameleons.
Wow.
So, it gets that niche. My favorite early one was it was called the Swinecast, and I think it's still out there. Okay. And it's for professional pig breeders. And one of the episodes, you could learn how to artificially inseminate a pig.
And that's the thing, is there's an audience for that, right? Those people who are interested in that will find it. And I'm like, how cool is
someone, verbally describing to you. It's not even like a tutorial here. You've got to listen to someone describe what to do and then go do it.
Yeah, there was something about rubbing the vulva and getting it ready for and it's like, wow, how did this one get through the sensors?
Right, that one, they had to click that explicit button.
Yeah, right. They had to put, it's like this gets very detailed on how you're supposed to do this. I think, so obviously, I mean, how long have you been in the podcast game?
I started in 2004. So I was there from the very beginning. Yeah.
Right at the beginning, yeah.
It was when I heard about it, it was the beginning of October 2004, and I said, I got to do this. There was maybe 100 podcasters. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do a podcast about podcasting. And my first podcast was Podcast 411. It was about interviewing podcasters.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
And then 2007, I wanted an iPhone. So I said, how do I justify this to the wife? I'll do a podcast on the iPhone. So I had the first podcast on the iPhone called Today an iPhone.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool. So what have you seen? What has changed since 2004 to today? Like, what are the biggest things that you've seen happen? And what do you think led to this explosion in this popularity of podcasts?
Yeah. So 2004, it was literally walking uphill both ways to school in the snow. I mean, if you wanted to listen to a podcast, not even podcast, just you want to listen to a podcast, you had to download a third-party app called iPod X, and you had to download it onto your computer. Then you had to go and find the RSS feed. There were no directories. You had to find the RSS feed, manually subscribe to that RSS feed, and then you had to remember to sync up your iPod to your computer in the morning to get those onto your device so that you could sync it up and disconnect it and take it with you. And that is so much more difficult than today, where everybody, where's your iPhone, right? This is where your podcasts live, right? They live right there on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, great apps. Right? And now you don't have to sync anything up. You don't have to do any of those things you had to do before. And consuming podcasts is so easy compared.
Yeah.
I was going to say, even when we first started, we're going to be coming into year 6 in a couple months. And when we first started, not that long ago, I remember people were like, well, how can I find it? So like even within the last 5 years, the comfort level and the amount of podcasts just kind of in the general awareness of society has, I feel like, exploded even more, you know?
Well, you know, a lot of people, you asked how it got popular and how it got to where we are today. And a lot of people want to say, oh, it was Serial. Serial made it popular. And you know who say that? The people that are newspaper reporters and the people that live in New York bubble. But it wasn't Serial. It was iOS 8 went native on the iPhone, the Apple Podcast app, when iOS 8 came out. It made it native. And then all of a sudden people started asking this one question. What is this purple app on my iPhone and how do I delete it? Because you couldn't delete it. So when they couldn't delete it, they tapped on it and that opened it up. And you actually look at when podcasting took off, it was iOS 8 with Apple Podcast being native. And, you know, and that is ultimately what really took off. And you know how you know that? Because from that point forward, the growth wasn't iOS and Android. The growth was really iOS. So if it was Serial, it would have been on both platforms, but the growth wasn't. It was on the iOS side.
Gotcha.
So that makes sense. And that was iOS 8 came out 6 years ago in 2014.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Why we've seen everyone get so much more comfortable with it within the last 5 years is because
and let's face facts. Serial season 2 sucked, right? So if it was all about
didn't listen to it.
Season 2 would have killed it.
Yeah.
But it did.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sly says, just like when Apple gave everyone a U2 album they couldn't delete. Up until a year ago, I was helping people delete U2 off their phones. Yeah, no, that's fascinating because, I think for me, I mean, honestly, I started listening to podcasts because of Justin. He recommended Bill Burr's podcast to me, and I started, dipping my toes into that. And then I think almost my entire library is comedians. I love listening to... Because it's an opportunity, I think what's beautiful about that is you just get more content from those artists, right? From these.
So are you listening to Christopher Titus?
I'm not listening to Christopher Titus. I follow him on Twitter, but is his show pretty good?
Yes.
I'd be funny. You're like, are you listening? You shouldn't. It's not. It's not good. I listened to Your Mom's House with Christina P. and Tom Segura, Two Bears, One Cave, Bad Friends, Whiskey Ginger. What are the other ones? Pod Save America. What a Day, and what else? Oh my gosh, those are off the top of my head the things that Bill Burt podcast, things like that. So
that's a good group of comedian podcasts.
Yes.
You know, WTF Mark Maron was, you know, that was one of the early ones that really took off.
Right.
And, you know, and I always love people like, oh, well, Mark Maron, he had a radio show, you know, that's what really helped him. He was on Air America. Nobody listened.
Yeah, exactly.
He couldn't even book a 40-room gig in a comedy club. He'll tell you that. He'll say it was either a rope in the garage or a mic in the garage. He chose the mic. It worked out.
And thank God. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Because being in radio and being on podcasts, two very different things.
Yeah.
Very different things. And I think that's what I love about it is I'm a big fan of long form content. That's actually what I, originally drew me to, Joe Rogan's podcast. Is like, I'm in for a 3-hour podcast. Like, I'll listen to this in small chunks over 3 days. I'm like, that's awesome. On my commute to work or whatever. Yeah. And just hearing these conversations is what really appealed to me. And because for me, I don't really like a 10 to 20 minute podcast. I'm like, I'm going to burn through this so fast.
Yeah, I mean, people keep saying, oh, well, 20 minutes is the ideal length. And who says that? People from radio. They don't know podcasts.
I've heard that. They're like, you got to aim for 20 minutes. I'm like, why? What are you going to do in 20 minutes?
I do like some 20-minute podcasts or half-hour podcasts. Like there are some where, like the one that I keep sharing with you, The Business, which talks about the entertainment industry.
Sure.
They open it up with 5 minutes of just like back and forth banter about news, and then they have a quick interview and they're out. And it's perfect when I'm shaving in the morning, I'll throw that on, and by the time it's done, I'm done with my morning routine, and then I'm starting work. And it's a nice, I think those have their places, but you are absolutely correct, is that people in radio think still very short form, and it's hard to break out of that 80 plus years they've been doing it one way, and they're like, what's this new? What do you mean 3 hours? Hold on. That's a shift. You're talking about a shift.
Hardcore History, Dan Carlin. More downloads per episode than any other podcast.
So good.
And it's 6 hours long, and it is a great podcast. Dan does so much.
So good. I remember someone mentioning that, and I was like,
the nicest guy, and he's so paranoid that his next. I mean, he tweeted to me. He's like, he goes, I really hope this podcast is, doesn't bomb. I'm due for a bomb. And I'm like,
Dan,
millions of listeners.
Right.
I know. I have seen that where he gets he's like, I'm sorry this has been taking so long, but it's like, I understand, like, you do this massive, his stuff on Genghis Khan was phenomenal. Like, that was
greatest.
One of the, it was so good. And just the way he dives into it and just like breaks it down. I'm like, it blew me away. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a good podcast. And I guess it's also good to know that people still feel the same way when they're creating content, right? They're still
that's a consummate artist right there.
Yeah, right.
It's the imposter syndrome and always feel like they're going to get found out. Like that's how you know he's a true artist.
Yeah, he said to me when he goes, I don't release my next episode until I feel it's better than my last episode.
Wow.
That's not what we do.
That's a bar. That's a bar to live by. I'm
right.
like, I release my next episode right before the 5-hour energy drink wears out.
That's about it too. Yeah.
I was like, we're not doing any heavy hitting deep dives into history or any breaking news or anything like that. We're just talking about nerd stuff, and we have a fart the soundboard. So
No, don't go to the wet one. Don't go to the wet one. No, not the wet one.
No, we won't unless it warrants it.
Yeah, exactly. That only comes out when necessary.
Yeah.
What I do find interesting though is that when I went to college, I got my degree in radio broadcasting, and at the time I was at Columbia College in Chicago, they did not have any podcasting classes, and now that is 100% integrated with the curriculum. And I think what's interesting is that I didn't want to leave Chicago. And so I never broke into the industry, because you don't come out of college and just get on the radio in Chicago. You go to some podunk town and you work your way back into one of the major markets. And with podcasting, that allowed me to flex that muscle and to do the thing that I enjoyed doing, but I didn't have to leave the city. So I think it's interesting that a lot of the curriculum now and the people who are going into this have an avenue where they can just start doing the thing that they're training to do without having to jump through all the hoops of the gatekeepers.
So you don't have to go to Akron, Ohio to start your career.
Bingo. Exactly. Yes. I don't have to go to Bald Knob, Arkansas to start my career.
Yeah. Right. No, I think that's the thing too, is it's so easy to do a podcast. It's very simple just to set it up, and it's real easy to make it sound good. And I think that's what I kind of enjoy. Now, the flip side of that is you know, like anything that has low barriers to entry, there's going to be some rough stuff in there too. It's not going to be, you know, fully fleshed out. It's not going to be the best production, but I love the. Justin and I just started doing this almost 6 years ago. It was just on a whim.
Well, there's 2 million podcasts, right? But what they don't tell you is 1.5 million of them aren't producing new episodes.
Exactly.
Exactly right.
Yeah, which we always tell ourselves, like, just keep going.
Creating an audio file, easy.
Yeah.
Creating content, not so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Being consistent, and like Justin is always driving us. He's like, consistency is king. He's like, we pride ourselves on not missing a week and just continually getting our stuff out there, because it can be a grind, you know, if you really want to, you know. Hope you enjoy doing it, because, you know, to do a weekly podcast, you know, that's an hour and a half on our end, you know, it's a lot. And I even think about, you know, again, going into Joe Rogan, like, he does a crap ton of podcasts every week that are all 3 hours, some of them multiple times a day. I'm like, how does that guy do that? Like, that is, obviously, you know, for a living.
His shortest episode was the interview with Bernie Sanders.
That's right, because some of those, I think, bigger, I think Robert Downey Jr.'s was also like an hour as well. Like the ones I'm like, these guys they can't hang out for 3 hours.
Scheduled to keep.
They got to go.
I didn't realize that he did a lot of his multiple recordings in the same day. That's a marathon, is what that is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll see him up. I used to see him upload an episode in the morning, or Red Band uploading in the morning, and seeing them upload it again in the evening. Sometimes,
Jeez.
That's
incredible.
That's wild.
My biggest mistake as a podcaster was not going on his show when I was invited.
Oh no! Oh no!
He invited me on. He goes, because when the iPhone, it was like the iPhone 6 or 7 was coming out, I think it was, back then. And he said, "You want to come on and talk about the new iPhone?" I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "Okay, you just have to fly out here to LA." And I'm like, "Oh, I can't do that."
Oh man.
And in hindsight, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Right. That's heartbreaking.
Look, I got responsibilities. I can't fly out there. That's pretty cool. He seems pretty generous with that stuff, which I think is really cool. And what I like about this, you know, the medium too, is you get an opportunity to explore more of some of your, you know, artists, you know, like, again, seeing comedians like almost come up with bits live as they're sort of talking through stuff. Or I feel like, in my experience, I get to know these people, and there's a community that develops out of it. You hear inside jokes. You hear, you know, just the merch that's built out of inside jokes and things that happen. And so if you see someone that's wearing a shirt or has something, you're like, hey, I get that, because, you know, How Did This Get Made is another one that we really like. And it's like, Justin bought me a shirt that has an inside joke of, you know, Stellar
skateboard.
Stellar Skateboard from Stellar Skarsgård. It's him. It was just like, you see it, you're like, oh, I know that. I know what that's from. And that community that is built around it is just so fun and engaging. And how cool is it that you see people that are like, we're going to take these movies and we're going to break them down. And people are like, I love this. I mean, Justin and I went to a live show of that because, you know, we were so into it. It's just such a fascinating, like, just experience that exists out there.
Right.
That's all I had to say.
No, I think that's one thing that one of the good things about like the YouTube community they always talk about is being able to build that community, and or all the famous YouTubers, the successful ones, they build the communities, and I think that's something that podcasting does, and they've been doing it for just about the same amount of time, maybe a little bit earlier than YouTube has.
Well, but when podcasting started, before YouTube really took off, a lot of the video people were on podcasting side. So Tiki Bar TV and Ask a Ninja. These were folks that were podcasters and Rocket Boom TV. So back in the early days of Geek Brief TV, these were podcasters, not YouTubers. But then YouTube won, right?
Sure.
YouTube got bought by Google and won. and they won video. And now podcasting, everybody knows it as an audio medium. But in the early days, it was 50-50 audio video.
That's really interesting.
Well, I do notice
the same idea of community stretches that explains why that same idea of community, because the same people of the same mindset were doing both. Yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest YouTubers at one point in time, her name was Marina from Hot for Words. And I don't know if you remember Hot for Words. It was a woman with a Russian accent, and basically an outfit that would was one step above what you'd see at Twin Peaks.
Okay.
And she had a really popular show and on as a podcast and as a YouTuber. And she was at one point in time the #1 YouTuber. And after they had gotten it bought by Google, they had flown her out there. She met with Chad, and they told her all about different, algorithms, all those other different things. But here's the funny story: we had her podcast. She was hosting with us for podcast, and we were getting her in advertising. And one of the advertisers turned her down because they said she was too risque, right? And now here's the advertiser: the Navy. The U.S. Navy. Yes, because you're recruiting 18-year-old males, and you don't want this woman who's talking about the etymology of words in a bikini to be doing an ad for the U.S. Navy.
That's hilarious.
What is wrong with this picture?
Right?
Right. My God, what a recruitment tool. Come on.
I know. Yep. But they rejected her. So sometimes you can never figure out some of these agencies.
That's what you call a missed opportunity. That's absolutely amazing. So, with so many podcasts out there, and with it being so easy to make a podcast, do you think there's a bubble that's out there? And if so, is it going to pop? And if so, when? Give me the day and the time.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't think there's a bubble. I think what you're seeing is a lot of dead shows. Right? Right now, you're getting to the point where the churn rate in podcasting is like 26% per month.
Wow.
It's just an incredible number of churns. 8 out of 9, 9 out of 10 new shows don't make it to 10 episodes. Because, really, the reality is it's mostly anchor shows, right? The anchor has a lot of dead shows. People create one episode, they call it a podcast. Hey, Mom, I'm podcasting. That's episode 1. Episode 2 is I don't know what we're going to talk about, and then that's it. Yeah. Maybe they'll get to 3, which is this didn't work so well. I'm going back to Twitch, whatever it is, something like that. But as far as a bubble, I let's put it in perspective. There's 750 million blogs. There's 400 to 500,000 active podcasts. It's about 2,000 to 1 ratio. In that neighborhood. So I don't think there's a bubble. It's still a lot more work to create a podcast than it is to create a blog. And because of that, it's going to keep the number of active podcasts down to a certain point.
That's a really good point.
I guess when you're looking at it from such a small section, because like you see all your celebrity people that you follow or the comedians, and they've all got podcasts, and you talk to, like in Chicago here, every comedian in Chicago has their own podcast. And they should, but in a small bubble like that, where you're talking about, there's like 4,000 or whatever you said, active podcasts.
400,000.
About 400,000.
About 400,000 to 500. If you want to be generous, we'll say 500.
Sure, but like in the grand scheme of like everyone on the planet, that's not a lot. But if you like everyone that you talk to, if they have a podcast, it can make it perception being reality. It can kind of make it seem like, well, Jesus, there must be like 300 billion podcasts out there. How do I even begin? Well, but it's just not. Yeah.
Right. And I always say to people, don't worry about doing a podcast that has the same content as something else. I point out I Dream a Genie and the Munsters, which are really Bewitched in the Addams Family.
Damn it, that's a
good point.
But both, you know what? All 4 shows were great. That's when I grew up. Those were the reruns. We watched all of that. I mean, Lost is really just Gilligan's Island.
That's a fair point.
So
yeah.
So it's okay to have a show that's even on the same topic as someone else is doing. You're going to bring your own personality to it. Don't worry about it. So that's what I say. And you can have fun. I mean, I have a show called, I just created a little sideshow called Meta Monday Murder Podcast. And it's about a serial killer that only kills serial killer podcasters on Monday mornings at 5 a.m. with Harry's razor. So basically, I just look for serial podcasts that, true crime podcasts that have gone away and say, well, this person got killed by this serial killer.
It's amazing. What a wonderful concept.
That's so random and weird, and I love it.
I love it.
But here's the thing. Here, I came up with the idea, and I said, I want to see if I come up with an idea and get a podcast launched in Apple Podcasts in an hour, and I did.
Wow.
So I got the first trailer and everything done, hour, boom, up.
That's amazing.
There you go.
And honestly, that's interesting you bring that up, because like that was my hesitance to do a podcast initially. I was like, Justin's like, we should do this. I'm like, who's gonna listen to us? Like, what are we doing that's different? I mean, are we the only people out there talking about nerd stuff? No. Like, there's plenty of people that are doing that. But, unlike these other co-hosts, Justin and I like each other. And, and we like being silly, having a good time. And it's become something where also, as, we used to work together at the same company. And then as we've sort of, gone about our lives, I look at it as it's a day in the week where I get to check in with one of my best friends, and just connect over this sort of stuff. And we've slowly built a small but mighty community of folks who just like to also hang out with us and contribute. And, it's been such a fun experience. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. One of the things that bothers me more than anything else is when I hear people say, well, how are you going to make money from that podcast? I'm like, okay, you don't have to. Most podcasts never monetize. A lot of people just do it to have fun. And there's plenty of podcasts like yours, you guys, that get together. There's podcasts there's 4 guys I know that play video games. They get together every Sunday night as an excuse to get away from the wives. Right? They used to get together at one person's house. Now they have to all do it via Skype.
Sure.
Right? Or whatever their technology they're using. But I'm old school, so I still say Skype means
it's okay.
VoIP.
Fair enough. It's all
I mean,
good.
I still can't even. Why does everyone want to do Zoom calls? Why can't you pick up the phone and talk? Okay.
No, that's a good question. Let's start there. Let's dive into that. I don't know. It's so funny. I don't call anybody anymore. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I personally don't understand, if we were going to get into this, I don't understand why Zoom. I know, because Skype was around, WebEx was there. Google has free options. I don't quite know why. Like, I don't know how Skype got a stranglehold on this, or Zoom rather got a stranglehold on this. But I'll say this: good for them.
Yeah,
and good for the people who own stock in them.
Yeah, right. Especially now. Yeah, it's definitely done well.
Yeah, someone in the chat said there's AOL Instant Messenger. There are other options. I
use GoToMeeting just to piss people off. So let me send you my GoToMeeting. No, the goes do Zoom. No, we'll do GoToMeeting.
No, let's try something different.
I'll just send it to you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's kind of the same thing with Discord. We're like, hey, when we try Discord, people are like, I don't know what this is. I'm like, I don't know. We use it. I'm sorry, but this is what we're going to do.
Right. We've made a decision.
I've had my Discord account for a while. What was my number? 9590. So
hey, there you go.
not as long as you guys. You guys are a little bit lower number than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've had one for a while. I just never knew. I didn't do much with it until recently. So
I got it because Doug told me to get it. He goes,
right.
We're going to be using this. I go, all right.
Yeah. Justin.
That's about it.
Justin is like a unicorn in our Discord community. When he shows up, people are like, oh, Justin's here. He just drops little nuggets here and there, and people get all excited. It's
mostly because I'm not in there because I don't fully understand what it is yet.
Oh, my older son, both my sons are video gamers, and my older son was talking about Discord. I go, I have a Discord account. He's like, you do that? I'm like, yeah.
You do that. That's amazing.
You know what that is? Whoa.
Yeah. Isn't that funny when kids? When I worked at a hotel, there was a kid that walked by that had he had a Minecraft shirt on that had a creeper. I'm like, oh, I like your Minecraft shirt. And he's like, Mom, how does he know what this is? I'm like, come on, I pay attention to things. He was so flabbergasted that an adult would know what his shirt meant. I'm like, yeah, sorry about it.
Nope. We've made Minecraft outfits for the kids for Halloween and all that.
That's awesome. Nice. That's amazing. Are you a gamer?
I am an old school gamer, but I know you've only played Fortnite twice. But I actually, when the kids got into Fortnite, I said, I'm going to learn this. And I actually had a solo win before my younger son, which really tweaked him. So I got to the solo win before the younger one. So I was really giving him grief.
Wow. That's impressive.
I've won dual matches with both of them. We've won group matches. So I played for a while, but then Fortnite, had the kerfuffle with Apple, and I just said, to the kids, no longer can spend money on Fortnite. Sorry, guys, and I dropped it.
But Dad, Batman's coming back in with the crossover comic.
Well, my younger kid is what I would call a true artist. Because he was creating music for me for my podcasts and. And I would pay him money for the music, which he would then spend on Fortnite. So he's a true artist because he was creating music to pay for his addiction.
There you go.
That is the definition of a musician artist.
There you go.
Absolutely, it is. That's incredible. That he was great music for your podcast, though.
Oh,
Kind of keeping it in the family.
My son, he's pretty good at. I mean, songs that he's created. One of them is used by eBay in their podcast, and another is now used in the Google for their newest podcast. The music in the background for the trailer is his song. So his resume at 12 years old, he's got eBay and Google that have used his music.
That's phenomenal.
That's bonkers.
That's incredible. Wow.
Have your kids expressed interest in podcasting themselves? Have they?
My younger son, when he was 5.5, came to me, not the older one. So I was on like a tiger dad. The younger one came to me at 5.5 and he said, Dad, I want a podcast. And I was like, okay. I said, okay, what? I had 2 questions for him. And if he can answer the 2 questions, I would let him do it. I said, what do you want to do a podcast on? He goes, I want to answer people's questions. I said, okay, you got a format.
I love it.
And I go, what do you want to call it? He goes, Porter's Podcast. And his name's Porter. So he had a good name. And he had a format, and he launched at 5.5 and did it for a few years, and it was fun. He had some good comedy. He threw me under the bus a few times. Yeah, I mean, one of his better jokes was we went to New York, and we come back from New York, and he goes, in New York to say please and thank you, they say yo and hey.
That's incredible. I love that.
That is amazing. I hope someday, like my daughter, she's 5 and she's been curious about my microphone and stuff like that. I'm like, come on over, let's record your voice. Let's, whatever. We'll do that. She loves hearing the sounds and the different stuff we can do with it. But I would absolutely love it if she got into podcasting.
Now's the time,
right?
And it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun creating those with him, and
I can imagine.
And now he's getting ready to be at Twitch. He turns 13 in June. So my poor wife, this is my wife's dinner conversation.
Oh man.
Nope, I need to get the 3080 GPU. Nope, you need 3070. Nope, 3080. Nope, 3070. Can't get 3080. So that's my dinner time conversation lately. My poor wife is sitting there going, "Oh, good Lord."
Just right.
That is
pour
amazing.
Another glass of wine. I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're still haven't gotten the 3080. We're still waiting. So we did decide to get the 3080, but it keeps the notification comes out. They're all sold out. They sell in 6 minutes. How can these GPUs go that fast?
That's amazing.
So if anyone has a 3080 GPU, hey, hit me up.
You heard that, community. If anyone's got one, let us know and we'll pass it along.
Yeah, for sure. That's so cool. And Twitch is another thing that I think is very, so similar to podcasts in that, I've seen like different musicians that are like, hey, I'm gonna hop on here and play games, or hey, here's me just playing the bass for a little bit. It's like, or one of my favorite bands, Senses Fail, the lead singer just hops on Twitch. He's like, hey, here's the update on the album. Here we go. Mark Hoppus of Blink-182 just found out today he has a Twitch. I'm like, I'm going to follow him. Just see all the stuff that he does. And just, it's such a cool way of, again, just establishing that community and getting to see and interact with people, you normally wouldn't. There was one of the producers on Your Mom's House podcast. A couple of them have Twitch streams, and I was watching one night and I was just like, hey man, hope you're well. He's like, hey, My Get Podcast, do you have a podcast? If you do, I hope it's great. I'm like, he's talking to me. He's hoping that my podcast is good. That makes me feel special. And just, I don't know, it's such a unique platform to just explore different things like that. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think we'll see how he does. So we'll see. He's determined to have his computer up and running before June and get ready to, because he's to wait for his 13th birthday.
Right. I love that he's got that date though.
Band, so he's working on it.
Does he know what games he's going to be streaming?
What did he tell me? He told me and I forgot now. Now I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay.
Well, Minecraft, of course, but there was he's not doing Fortnite. Yeah, he does a little bit of Fortnite. I don't think he's going to do Fortnite though.
Okay.
Maybe Overwatch.
Hey, nothing wrong with Overwatch. Big fan of that.
But definitely not Destiny. He does not like Destiny.
Okay, you heard it here.
His older brother loves it. Yeah, his older brother loves it. I played it the other day for the first time. I thought it was good.
Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. I would love to have this conversation with my daughter. She's like, Dad, on my 13th birthday, I want to be on Twitch. I'd be like, yes. How are we going to do this? Where are we going to set up your stuff? Should we do it in the basement? Do you want a green screen? How do you want to do this? Like,
oh yeah, I got green screen lights. I got all that. He's ready to go on all that stuff. And all the monitors. Yeah, he's set. Well, the only thing right now is we're just putting together the computer. So we wanted to wait until when the new CPU and GPUs came out this year to build this computer.
It's amazing. That's so cool.
Rob, you are a good dad. I want you to, I don't care what you said about the Simpson thing. You are a good dad. This is awesome.
No. I think he's got the humor built up. He spent a year immersed in Simpsons, so he's ready.
There you go. Jokes. Yeah.
I don't know how off color they're going to be. I might get a call from a couple of parents.
Listen, that's the best way to learn. Take it from Justin and I. We did improv and we failed miserably several times, so we know what that's like.
I definitely fell on the parent side. I took him through the trilogy of Eddie Murphy movies recently, and I forgot all about the tits in there.
Which one?
Which ones are you talking about?
Well, you had to do. Coming to America 2 was coming out, so we did Coming to America. We did Trading Places and Beverly Hills Cop. Nice. Beverly Hills Cop, Trading Places, and Coming to America. Those are Eddie Murphy's 3 best movies. I don't care what you say. Sorry for all you Pluto Nash fans. That doesn't cut it.
I'm a Haunted Mansion man myself.
Dr. Dolittle, not gonna. No. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I just started rewatching Beverly Hills Cop last night, and it still holds up. Although, interesting. It's like you meet these Beverly Hills Cops who are by the book. They're sensitive, and the hero is the guy who's like, "No, let's break the rules." I'm like, doesn't really translate so well today, but still funny.
But yeah, how was the was when you were reminded that those scenes were in there? Was it just like
that was when the wife was in the room and she went
perfect?
And I was like, "Oh, sorry, forgot about that." I go, "There's no, and then it was at Trading Places. I go, "There's only one scene." I go, she only shows Jamie Lee Curtis only shows her breast once, and then the second time they came through, she's like,
like.
I can't be expected to remember all the times I see boobs. It's just, it happens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't shown him Starship Troopers yet, and his shower scene, I'm sure, is going to get me in trouble.
Yeah,
that's so funny because my wife does the same thing. I
remember that one popping up when I was like, oh, we're good. Okay, cool. We're gonna keep this on. Yeah,
I have to fast forward through that stuff.
Yeah,
I have to get quick on the remote, know where it's going to be.
Yeah,
and fast forward.
My wife is always like, Doug, is this a good movie? Can we watch this? The other day she goes, can she watch District 9? I was like, absolutely not. That's an R-rated movie. She goes, I don't remember it. I'm like, no, massive violence. Like, no.
That is a great movie, though.
Phenomenal.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
But I was like, my 5-year-old
out of South Africa ever.
Oh, it was so good because I remember watching that movie and I was like, I don't know who any of these people are. It was just like it was such a cool concept. It was made on such a great budget of $35 million. It was like the best Halo movie that never was. It was so good. But just to be like, hey, can our 5-year-old watch this? I'm like, no, not that one.
No.
I distinctly remember when I was just a wee lad, and we were all over at I think grandma's house or whatever. Cousins were around, about the same age, and the family had on Dances with Wolves, and there was the scene, the lovemaking scene, and we were watching it, and I was like, oh, they're kissing, gross, and then that started happening, and I remember it like I was being kidnapped. Like parental hands came around and just grabbed my eyes and yanked me backwards. And but it happened. If there was a camera, you would have seen it in succession. Like just thump, thump, thump. Like all the cousins just got yanked back one after the other. And we're just like, hold on, what are we missing?
Yeah,
now
that's the
we
thing.
want to see this. Yeah.
I look forward to just kind of turning to my daughter and be like, you ready for this? You ready for about to I'm gonna make it really weird. I'm gonna lean into it. I'm like, you ready? This is about to get dirty. All right, let's prepare ourselves. Here we go.
You are going to scar that child.
Hey, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of the joy of being a parent, Like just, although I gotta hand it to her, man. She is, what did she say today? I just do obnoxious things to her. She'll be saying something. She'll be like, you know what, Dad? You're being loud. I'm like, you're loud. I just kind of do that back to her, just constantly. Yeah. That's like my go-to move. And she said something like that, and I said that to her. She goes, Dad, stop saying things. I was like, you know what? I respect that. I will stop saying things.
We'll stop saying the things.
You got it. No problem, kiddo. She's also been watching a lot of How to Train Your Dragon Riders on Netflix. And so she's like, oh, my Thor. And I'm like, hey, if you're going to praise Thor, I'm all for it. Like,
well, okay, so what was her movie that she had to watch over and over and over and over?
Moana was one of them. Moana kind of that movie is a beautiful movie, but I can't watch it anymore. That one.
I remember that phase because at the time you were living at the building across the alley, and he would call me up every just like, dude, she's got Moana on again. I can't.
Yeah, it was too much. It was too much. It was like how the Metallica's Black Album got played in high school in the weight room so much. Where I'm like, I can't listen to Metallica anymore. Like this is just it's too much. It's too much. And there's been some other ones where I'm like, no, we're not watching this anymore. But she's gotten better for some of the movies she watches. Although she is expanding out. There's a couple of shows she started watching on. Slotty just goes, what can I say except you're welcome, Doug? Fuck you, Slotty. Fuck you, sir. But she's like been dabbling. There was a show where Jill and I are like, no, we're not watching that. That looks like the Barbie TV show. I'm like, no, you're not watching that. We're not sitting around watching you watch Barbie. No, I don't think so. Hard pass. But how about you, Rob? What was the movie that...
My older son was Cars, and the younger son was Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oof.
Really?
Oof.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The Alvin and Chipmunks one, I don't know how many times that played.
Oh God.
I knew that movie, every line. If you watch For All Mankind, if you've watched that on Apple TV, they were that one. Okay, so one of the scenes they get stuck up on they're stuck up on the moon, and they've only got a few videotapes, and one of them is of like 6 episodes of Bob Newhart. So they knew all the lines back and forth. And so the ongoing joke is, hello, Bob. I was that way with Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, what was Sing was another one that had like Matthew McConaughey. Oh yeah,
that would be a brutal one.
That one was brutal, although I didn't mind some of the singing, but I started to realize what I do in my brain is I start to overanalyze the films from an extremely practical sense. Zootopia was another one where I start breaking down the world and the characters. Like Sing, the main character is actually kind of a villain. He's not really a protagonist. Like, he doesn't pay his bills. He's like getting out loans, and he's like trying to really work one over on people. I'm like, he's not a good guy. Like, we shouldn't be rooting for this character. In Zootopia, I'm like, this place is kind of weird. You have large animals, you have small animals. I was like, what are the building codes like here? Like, do you have to have like a large animal entrance as well as a small animal entrance? What's the cost of living for the smaller rodents? Right. It's like, do you have to have like equal bathrooms wherever you go? And just like, I started breaking it down. My wife's like, please don't do this. Please don't go practical Doug on me. And please don't. I go, what are the taxes like? Are the taxes different if you're smaller versus if you're larger? Because larger animals eat more. Is their food cost more? Can a smaller animal go and buy like an elephant-sized thing and then just live off of that? I started. That's what I would think about.
I mean, is it illegal to eat the rabbit? I mean,
right?
It's your nature,
right? But that's the whole point of that movie, is that they've evolved past that, so they don't do that anymore. They have lattes instead.
I could really go for a rabbit right now, but I'll have a soy latte. Yeah. Have your kids been getting into you have Disney Plus, obviously.
Yes.
And they've just been going nuts on Disney Plus?
Oh, well, Star Wars, obviously.
Yeah,
big Star Wars fans. I'm a Star Wars, Star Trek fan.
Mm-hmm.
I could not get them into Star Trek, but they are big Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
So I actually told them, I was a Star Wars fan first, and I got into Star Trek because when the original holiday Christmas special came out, I watched that eagerly. And when it was over, I said, there's got to be something else, and I found Star Trek, and that's how I got into Star Trek. There's a holiday Christmas special turned me. So I've actually showed them. I have it on DVD, and I started showing them that they could not the holo projection scene.
Oh, okay.
If you've watched the holiday Christmas special, you'll know how bad
it's been
it is.
years, but
when you say it's bad, it is bad. I mean, it is brutally bad. I mean, it's just horrendously bad.
Yeah.
But I have it on DVD.
I've heard enough about it where I'm like, I don't think I need to see it. I think I'm good. I've heard enough of it broken down bit by bit, and I know I get the references to that. I'm like, I'm good. I don't think I need to see it. Although at this point, I mean, I'm already kind of fallen out of love with Star Wars. So, I mean, what more damage could you do?
Well, and I showed the kids the movies in the right order.
Okay, which is
episodes 4, episode 5, episode 2, 3, then 6.
Interesting.
and you skip one because one just confuses the hell out of them with trade guilds and all this other stuff. And then later on, when they want to watch it, they can go watch one. But the best, I saw an edit one time, was up on one of the BitTorrents. Someone had taken episode 1 and cut it down to its core parts, 15 minutes.
That sounds about right.
All content episode 1 was 15 minutes. Took out the stupid pod race, took out this, took out that, and it was 15 minutes of content with one good lightsaber fight at the end, and that was the whole movie.
So was it actually like a good short film at that point?
Yes.
There you go. So there's a good movie in there, regardless of length. It's just buried in a bunch of shit.
Yeah, Lucas took 15 minutes of content and tried to make a 2-hour movie, and that's where he failed.
Yeah, Jared in the chat says the machete order for the win. He goes, you get Anakin's redemption that way, so he agrees. Yeah, I was really excited for the most recent trilogy, and then it just kind of it fell flat for me. By the end of it.
I mean, let's face it. What they did with Luke's character was wrong.
Interesting. Tell me more, Rob.
Yeah, how so?
Well, I mean, I don't disagree. They made him a bitter man in it just wasn't, from someone who read the books, it just broke away from, you've read any of the Timothy Zahn books or any of the books afterwards. It wasn't the picture you had of Luke. It wasn't who Luke was in your mind after the first trilogy. And they went, I know they said those books aren't canon anymore and they took it away. But that's like a parent comes to you, we're not married anymore, but we're still your parents.
Well, I think that was definitely a good point, because when they said that stuff wasn't canon anymore, I'm like, this is dangerous territory, because people have a story in their mind and they're going to be referencing it. So when you start, because, it's like, who is Rey and who is her lineage and all that sort of stuff, people were pulling on some of that extended universe. And I didn't have a problem with Luke because I like the idea of, I really liked the Last Jedi. It's not perfect. There's definitely parts where I'm going to skip the casino planet. This is a waste of my time. But I did like some of the elements, and I did like the fact that Luke was kind of curmudgeon-y because he had failed so bad, and he's just like, he feels so bad at what he's done, he just wants to go die on his own. And it would be cool to see him when at his peak, right? Because you got to see that a little bit in The Mandalorian, which was pretty cool. Alert. Yeah, spoiler alert. Boom. Which was pretty cool, and especially because
it's very cool. But the fact that people didn't spoil it was even better.
Yes, especially Mark Hamill. He's like, man, I've had to keep that under wraps for over a year. I was like, kudos to you, sir. But what's cool is I just literally watched Rogue One the day before I watched that episode, and the parallels of the lightsaber, sequences at the end of those respective pieces of content, where I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I don't know. To me, it was a matter of.
Well, here's the way I look at it. A bad Star Wars movie is still better than a good Twilight movie.
Boy, Rob, true words have never been spoken on this podcast. So
we have had a guest in this podcast that would vehemently disagree, but they're not here right now. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. That's a extremely good point. Because go ahead.
No, I was going to go back to Rogue One. That I really final Rogue One. I loved that Rogue One, and that final scene where Vader comes in, to me, might be one of the greatest scenes in all of the Star Wars movies. Like, it was, you felt goosebumps. You're like, we're finally getting to see true Vader whoop ass. Like, this is what Vader is. This is why people are terrified of him.
That was like peak Vader.
Yes, exactly. And like we never got that. We saw either old man Vader, or we saw, ghost Vader, or we saw whiny emo Vader. We never got badass Vader.
Well, because there was also that comic Vader Down, where Darth Vader gets shot down on a planet. He's surrounded by a whole bunch of rebels. It's like they're like trembling as they're talking to him. He's like, surrender. He's like, you're surrounded. He goes, the only thing I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men. And then he just slaughters all of them. I'm like, you don't get to see that in the movie. And then at the end of Rogue One, you're like Justin said, I'm like, this is it. You just get to see him do everything, just cut through everyone. They're just like, please open the door. We're going to die. And he just, absolutely just, annihilates them. It's like, this is what we were kind of missing. From those extra things. It's such a nice little addition onto that universe. And I'm like, yeah, I could watch Vader annihilate people like that all day.
You know, and if I was to show the kids the movies again today, I probably would have went Rogue One, Star Wars. I would have went Rogue One, Episode 4, Episode 5, 2, 3, 6.
That gives a nice lead into that Episode 4. Yeah.
Yeah, Rogue One's definitely a really great standalone. Like, I really, really, really enjoyed that movie. I remember seeing the trailer for it. I'm like, all right, a Star Wars movie I can get behind. Same thing with like The Mandalorian. I've enjoyed The Mandalorian. Same thing. It's just, you know, I'm like, cool. Something that doesn't deal heavily in Jedi. I mean, yeah, you got little baby Yoda and stuff like that, but it's something that exists outside of, we like to see Jedi, but it's also cool to see what were the repercussions after Episode 6? Like, what was the galaxy like, and you have this bounty hunter that's existing in it and seeing all these other characters. It's so much fun just to live and exist in this giant galaxy that's not Tatooine, because we keep going back to Tatooine.
Why did Boba Fett wait so long to go try to get his outfit back?
What a great question. What a great question.
The guy that had his outfit was like it was like Barney Rubble. Barney Fife.
Yeah. Well, especially all right. So here's
Barney
the thing.
Rubble. He was a Barney.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We don't see Boba Fett do jack shit in the movies ever. He's not effective. Other than he's there when they capture Han Solo. He's just not effective. And then in The Mandalorian, he just beats wholesale ass, like just crushing people, doing whatever. I'm like, where was this? Where was this guy? And I agree with you. It's like he's just hanging out on Tatooine, just getting sunburned, just waiting for what? How long was he there? He's like, did he not know where it was? Like,
it had been a couple of years since he crawled out of out of the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
So,
and also, I don't know. I kind of got annoyed that Boba Fett showed up. I'm like, we don't need him here. We really don't. This is again a situation where, like, you could take your fan service, you could shove it. I don't need Boba Fett.
If he didn't show up, how would we have teed up the next series?
I don't want the next series. I don't care about the Book of Boba. Like, I don't.
Come on, that looks good.
I'll watch it, but I'm like, they're gonna have to win me over. I'm like, okay. So this guy is now in charge of Jabba's palace. It's Boba's palace. All right, cool. Let's see what happens. I mean, I'll check it out, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I reluctantly go there. I
don't think he'll have a woman on a chain.
God, I hope not.
Things have changed a little bit since then.
I hope that's the case.
Agreed.
Yeah, because I was like, again, looking back on that, I'm like, man, what was Lucas thinking? It's like, this is...
Lucas was thinking that there's going to be a lot of fun cosplay in those bikinis at future shows.
He wasn't wrong. He definitely nailed that.
Lucas, man. We could dive into where he was.
Yeah, I'm a geek. If you want to, if you guys, here's a little Easter egg. Go to podcastwidow.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see my significant other.
Podcastwidow.com.
Oh, look at you two. How adorable. Aw, I love it.
I love that. Oh, you guys nerd out together. A couple that nerds together stays together.
That's awesome.
I love that.
It's amazing. You also go check that out. See a nice little.
She hates when I give. So I had that URL, and I just said I'm going to redirect it to this post one day. When she gets on me with friends, I go, "Hey, just check out podcastwidow.com." She's like,
I love it.
Stop it.
That's so awesome.
Stop sending everyone there.
Like, but it's a good photo. That's so cool. Yeah, I don't know. I want Star Wars to give me that feeling that I used to have, but I don't know if it'll ever come back at this point. I'm kind of just grumpy, but I just sort of stick with Marvel these days. Marvel hasn't let me down yet.
I like darker stuff.
Same.
Yeah. And here's what I was reading. We were talking about Dune and whether you sent the links in Dune. And one of the articles I read is like, it said, well, Dune is kind of the anti-Star Wars. Wait a second. Dune came out 15 years before Star Wars. Lucas took the idea of the Sandcrawler from it, the Sand People from it, the Jedi's from the Jedi Bezeret. He stole from it. You can't say it's the anti-Star Wars. Star Wars is the anti-Dune.
There you go.
It's exactly, yes. The nerddom, when they latch on to, like, the Star Wars fans will always, that's one thing. Star Wars fans sometimes, to me, they can get very similar to like Cubs fans or like those kind of where you're just like, you guys have to stop for a second. Like from a very, very hardcore linear timeline, Dune came out first. Yeah, but no buts.
Mhm.
Dune came out first.
Yeah, that
Lucas stole so many thoughts and ideas. Tatooine is so Arrakis.
yeah, for sure. Are you excited about the Dune remake?
I mean, heck, oh yes, I'm very much. I was gonna say they even had a worm in Mandalorian.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? That's right, they did. They did. I forgot. That's such a good point.
Somebody up on top of it with Queen music rolling in the background. Homage to the 80s Dune. But yes, I am very excited for the Dune remake. It's still my favorite book of all time, and you know, I want to see what they do with it. Now, I was really excited that they were going to do 2 movies. You know, they were going to split it into 2 because it's so hard to do it in 2. There's no way. Yeah. There's no way to do it. As a matter of fact, if you ever went and saw the original Dune and you hadn't read the book, you're lost. Yeah. You're completely lost.
Yeah.
So your recommendation then would be to read the books first, and then,
absolutely,
and then then start your cinematic adventure.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Are you happy now that they're saying that it may not come out day and date on HBO Max as with the theaters? Are you excited that they're potentially going to be pushing it just to the theaters, or what are your thoughts on the whole releasing at the same time schedule?
You know,
is it working for you?
I want it released. I was wanting it last year, so I'm like, just get the thing released. I'll see it wherever you put it. Put it IMAX. I'll find an IMAX theater. I don't care.
Right.
Wherever you're going to put it, I'm going to go see it. That said, one of the articles had a good point, saying, you know, if you do the HBO Max, a lot more people are going to see it than would have seen it otherwise. And that may actually help the franchise more so than if you just released it as is, because in the current environment, if you just release it in the theaters, I don't think people are going to be all that comfortable yet going to movies for another year or 2, maybe.
Yeah.
Not in the same volume that we were, not even close. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean, the idea of sitting in a theater packed side by side, everyone munching popcorn and laughing and screaming. And,
that's a new horror movie.
Yeah.
Like that to me, like the thought of that is awful. And honestly, I've enjoyed the releases on HBO Max. I watched Godzilla versus Kong. I wouldn't have seen that in the theater.
We're almost. My kids have to catch up. They're getting caught up on the Godzilla and the Kong movies.
All I'll say is that they fight.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Did you see the? Have you seen the honest trailers for it?
No.
Are they good?
Not. Okay, so it spoils a lot, but at the end they flash back to 2016 when they did an honest trailer, when they said, hey, you guys, you own Godzilla and Kong and another one, which I'm not going to mention, which is the third one. You own these 3 series. Why don't you have a mashup of all of them? And come on, do it. And so they called out what exactly happened. So I wonder if they actually took that idea from the honest trailers.
That's hilarious. I look at those movies as they're exactly what you think they're going to be. You know,
popcorn.
Yes,
it was good fun.
It's just pure, it's like Pacific Rim. You know what you're getting when you watch these movies. You're like Pacific Rim. It's like, oh, giant robots are smashing monsters. It's like, yeah, right. That's exactly. Don't look for character development. Don't look for an amazing story. It's like, you know what you came here for. You came here to watch these things.
You're probably not going to walk away with some deep understanding of existential meaning of life. You're going to walk away like, that was badass. I've
always just, and I've made this argument lots of times. It's like these movies, the tough thing is that they're like, well, we can't unfortunately just have these things fighting for 2 hours. So we have to intercut it with human stuff. I'm like, I don't give a shit about what's going on with these humans. I don't care. Their story means nothing to me. It's kind of like watching the Hulk, a standalone Hulk movie. You're like, hey, just be the Hulk, man. Don't talk about how you don't want to be the Hulk, because we want to see you be the Hulk and smash stuff. So he's like, but I don't want to. It's like, no, we want to. So he works better as a side character where it's like, yay, it's time for the Hulk to come out. Same thing with this. It's like, I don't care what you got going on in your life, human. Like, show me these big monsters. I want to see them punch each other.
So what you're saying is take that, cut it down to 15 minutes, and then we got another really good short film.
I mean,
well, they probably have more fighting than 15 minutes, I bet you.
Oh, very much.
Yeah.
Very much. If you combined all the times they go toe to toe,
yeah, I think it's more than 15. Mm-hmm. I bet we'd be surprised.
The entire third act is just them fighting.
It's probably less than we think. I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
It's not like football where you're watching a football game. You actually you take 2-3 hours of football and it comes down to 15 minutes. That's all he really played.
My brother used to do that. He goes, I usually start watching a game at halftime, like because it's halftime, because I just start fast forwarding through everything. I zoom up to the next play, zoom up to the next play, cut through commercials. I'm like, hey, by the end of it, I've caught up. I'm like, it's actually a pretty good way to go about it.
That is pretty smart, I gotta admit.
Yeah.
I'm for me with Dune, this has definitely made, like, the idea of releasing a day and date on HBO Max. I am very interested in seeing what this was. It's not one that I probably would have gone and sought out in the theater. So I'm very much like you were saying, Rob. I am one of those people in that camp that is definitely, if it drops on HBO Max, day it drops, I'm watching it. Like I'm excited for it, but I probably wouldn't venture out. I don't have that deep of a love for the source material to venture out to the theater at this point, Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to watch the Mortal Kombat movie when it comes out. I mean, because it's there, Like, I think it's going to be bad, but I'm going to watch it.
Right.
I sure as hell wouldn't go to the theater to see it, but I'm like, well, it's right there on HBO Max. Maybe you'll make a good podcast episode. Who knows?
There's some movies that just aren't going to be the greatest, but you want to watch them.
Yeah.
And you just got to get them in there.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Rob. Let's say Dune comes out and you just hear empirically across the board, like, this isn't a good movie. Are you still going to go see it?
Of course.
I did that with The Dark Tower.
Without hesitation. Yeah.
Without it, because I don't believe movie critics, and and there's some movies that I really have liked that people have just trashed, and others that I was like, I don't see it, I don't get it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I did that with The Dark Tower. I knew it was going to be bad, but I was like, I've got to see this. I love those books so much. I was like, Idris Elba as Roland. I'm like, amazing. Matthew McConaughey's The Man in Black, amazing. But boy, was it a bad movie. I was like, I actually went to the theater and everything. I was like, man, it's not good. And Justin, you watched that on TBS or something, didn't you?
Sorry, you both said something. What Rob, what'd you say?
I was trying to remember what the worst movie that I've seen recently would have been.
It's a great question.
Yeah, I'd have to say it's the most recent Wonder Woman.
Actually, I literally just, that popped in my head right before you said that. I was like, it was probably Wonder Woman 84. That one was rough. My daughter actually saw that the other day. She goes, Dad, can we watch it? I go, no. Yeah, no. We'll watch the original. We'll watch the first one. Not watching that one.
Yeah, just something about it just came off wrong. I don't know what it was.
It was not good. It was not good. And
it wouldn't have even been good in 84.
Well played. The worst movie I've seen recently was one, Doug, to your thing, was on TBS, and I don't know why. Hitman's Run, Eric Roberts, 1999. I'll say I cannot recommend this movie enough. If you've never seen it, please go seek out Hitman's Run. It is so beautifully locked in a time capsule.
Eric Roberts, his claim to fame is his sister.
Yeah, right?
Exactly, yes, yeah.
That, I mean, I don't know. Is he trying to rack up the most credits in movies ever? Because, I mean, he's got to be close. I mean, that guy
working on it.
His IMDb is stacked of credits.
One time I'd like to see him as a bad guy. Just once.
Well, you didn't like him in The Dark Knight?
Oh, I'm just saying he's a bad guy.
That's fair. Yeah, that's actually a fair point.
There was one Eric Roberts movie that I saw recently, and I can't remember where it was, but I think it was probably the best one I've ever seen. And if I'm remembering the title correctly,
welcome to the Throwdown.
Well done, Justin. Well done.
Thank you. My segues are unrivaled.
They are unrivaled, except by me. So, we got a good one this week. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how Rob feels about this. So, Justin, play the music. This week's Throwdown is The Tick versus Freakazoid. So,
those of you who don't know, who have not followed Rob closely over the last couple years, he is a massive Tick fan.
Yes.
Massive Tick fan. You said when we were corresponding, you said that you have
I have most of the comics.
Yeah.
First releases. I've got like 3 left to go.
That's awesome.
That's dedication. I love
it's tough. I mean, it's tough though. Every time you go to like a Comic-Con or that, you have to go find a Tick 6. You have to always remember to write down the episode, the ones you don't have,
right,
and bring with you. Because there's been multiple times I've bought, and I worked my way from like 4th print to 3rd print to 2nd, as you go along. Yeah. But,
that's amazing.
I'm almost there. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll find them.
So
when the Comic Cons open up again, it gives me something to do when you go to Comic Con. Stop at a thing. Hey, where's your tick stuff?
Like right this way, sir. So
they open a
and if people don't know the tick and they only know it from the live action TV, then I have to say, which live action do you know it from?
Right.
Patrick Warburton or the Amazon Prime? And then, from there, those are 2 different storylines with different villains. And then you go to the cartoon, which is one of the greatest cartoons of all time. And that's a different storyline than the comics.
Oh my gosh.
The comics, his origins has kind of changed, and who the villains are. Like, you don't see El Cid and Chairface Chippendale in the live stuff.
So that's interesting. So because I was gonna say, like, do they just retread the same for each of these iterations of the tick being on cartoon and then the first live action, second live action? They're not just retreading the same, like Spider-Man films. They're not showing you the same origin story over and over again.
No, I mean, they completely changed the origin story. Like in the comic, the cartoons, he kind of wins a battle to be the protector of Reno. Right. And so that's kind of how he gets it. He goes to this convention and he's picked. But in the comic book, he kind of has a mental breakdown and goes into an insane asylum and then gets out of the insane asylum and gets a divorce from his wife. And so it's a little bit more dark.
Very different origin stories.
How do they school me on the tick real quick? How do they justify the superhuman abilities? Was that just naturally born that way?
They never really justify it. It's just that he's got nigh invulnerability, and super strength. That's really it. I mean, that when you go, and then you got Arthur, and Arthur's been there throughout. So there's always been the tick in Arthur.
Yeah,
and so that's about the only constant in there.
That's amazing.
I mean, early on, the villain was like man-eating cow in the comics.
So being the foremost expert in the tick, so you said he's nigh invulnerable.
You can't kill. So here, when you said we're going to have a throwdown and who's going to, battle to the death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I hate to say that I don't have to do any research on who he's going to fight because it's going to wind up a draw. Okay. He's not going to kill anybody. Okay. He won't kill him. He will say to them, when the villain is trying to kill him, he'd be like, "Ooh, we have mommy issues here. Someone's not feeling well. Did we wake up on the wrong side of bed today?" He's gonna try to talk to them. You need to be not so aggressive.
That's amazing. He's like not only a superhero but also a licensed therapist. I love it. He breaks it down.
He doesn't get angry. He doesn't. He's kind of simple-minded. He's like Lenny in Of Mice and Men.
That's right, because they do mention that he's like he's not very intelligent.
No.
Yeah. I love that comparison though. Okay, so that's interesting though that he has a very strict code, it would seem.
Couldn't see him killing somebody, fighting to the death. No.
Okay.
He might let them bludgeon him in the head over and over and over until they exhausted, and but I just.
So there's absolutely no way to kill him. Like he's completely like you can drown him or something like that.
Nigh invulnerable. You can't kill him, and he's not going to kill anybody.
Okay.
So you have this now. The other people would try. They've tried.
Yeah. So I feel like what would happen then is that the Freakazoid is who we have him up against. And Doug, give us the tail of the tape on Freakazoid here.
So Freakazoid is he was born on Christmas Day. There we go. That's the thing we need to know. Now his powers, he's super intellect. So he has all the knowledge of the internet because of the ever increasing knowledge gathered there. It leaves him mentally insane. Superhuman strength. So superhuman speed. He can move at light speed. I love this example. For example, when he once crossed the globe in mere moments to yell at a Tibetan monk for raking too loudly. So that's pretty cool. Cartoon physics. He can impart the laws of physics in absurd ways to a level that even rivals those of Animaniacs. Fourth wall awareness and telekinesis. So a lot of interesting... thank you. Jared says, I would make a great tick. Thanks, buddy. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. If I'm dumb or if I'm nigh invulnerable, but I'll take it. Thank you.
So I would say that again, and our producer pointed this out as we were talking about it last night. Freakazoid has all the knowledge on the internet, circa 1995. So that's not saying
circa 1995. Okay,
well, that's when he came out. So I have to assume that that's where his knowledge is.
So he doesn't Google things; he Alta Vistas them.
Exactly.
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 Exactly. So I guess if the Tick is nigh invulnerable and he wouldn't kill Freakazoid, I feel like he would do exactly what we said, and Freakazoid would just basically run himself ragged until he either dropped dead himself or just kind of threw his hands up and walked away because he was upset by, you know, a Tibetan monk raking again or something. So I feel like the Tick would just pull a parent move and let him tire himself out.
Yeah. I was like, could Freakazoid throw him into space or something? Like,
he's been in space before.
I love it.
He's fine. He likes it there. You know, he likes to explore.
In the cartoon, one of the seasons in there, he got knocked up into space. He was floating around down the Earth.
Just cracking wise.
I've got nothing else here. Like I was like, there's no possibility. He's nigh invulnerable.
He won't kill. He just won't kill. He just won't do it. You know, he'll defend. Yeah. He'll defend and he'll punch and he'll smash, but he doesn't. He's not evil, and he's you know, like Steve Rogers.
You know, they said Superman doesn't kill, but by golly, we saw him kill in Man of Steel. So I mean, anything's possible, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not after that one time. And then the time after that. So I honestly think that this one is where Tick just is the most patient of patient individuals and just lets Freakazoid run himself. Because Freakazoid, it doesn't say that he is invulnerable or invincible or immortal or anything like that. So
nope.
Absolutely, he runs around until his heart explodes.
Or it's just that the Tick just he wears him down and he either just flies off because Freakazoid's so frustrated he flies off and just leaves the Tick alone, in which case the Tick wins.
Right.
And if he had a heart attack, the Tick would give him CPR.
I love it. So we have to, without any shadow of a doubt, we're calling this Tick for the win!
I'm so glad we had Rob here to give us the lowdown on this because these are things he answered all my questions. It was perfect. Mm-hmm. Rob,
I love it.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for this episode. This is the part of the show where we just like to, you know, if there's anything you've got going on, anything you want to promote, recommend, particularly recommend if there's a TV show, movie, book,
a podcast,
anything like that that you have going on.
I'll recommend, Doug, I'll recommend a podcast to you if you haven't listened to it yet, Revolutions.
I've started listening to that, actually. I did. Yes. It's fascinating. So thank you. Yes. If you haven't heard it, essentially it breaks down some of the most prolific revolutions in our history. And it's phenomenal.
When you get to the Haitian Revolution, you're going to think, why did they not teach us this in school?
Right.
You get to that, when you got to the Haitian Revolution, I went, where was this in my social studies class? Why did we not learn anything about this?
Well, I often wonder if maybe history teachers just assign podcasts now, because it's so funny how I became interested in this stuff at this stage of my life. I'm like, you know what I haven't thought about in a while? World War I. And then I'm like, is there a podcast on that? You betcha. And they break it down for you. It's like, how did Stalin, become Stalin? Good news. Listen to The Dictators. They tell you all about it in 3 episodes. It's phenomenal. That's a great recommendation. Anything else?
If you have an iPhone or an iPad, you care about that, check out Today in iOS. That's my other podcast. I had to take a month off because my house got flooded. But other than that, I'll have a new episode out on the 20th after Apple's going to have an announcement next Tuesday.
That's awesome. Exciting.
So, yeah. Now, if you're an Android fanboy, you will hate the show. Do not even listen. It's not for you.
It's for a very specific listener, and it's not for you Androids.
Yeah, it's for the iOS fanboys.
If you do have an Android, specifically Samsung, You can. There's a new they're doing a new native app now, right? That's what this is all about.
I'm gonna have this podcast. We're gonna get you in there.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome.
Just email me after the show, remind me, and I'll turn it on destination for you guys.
You got it.
That's thank you. That's so cool.
Wonderful. Justin, what do you got to recommend this week?
I'm gonna recommend Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Liking it a lot so far. Very different than WandaVision, obviously. You kind of know what you're getting. It's espionage, spy, thriller, action, but it's really good so far. So I'd say check that out on Disney Plus. Doug, what do you got?
I recommended the band Sunrise Skater Kids a couple weeks ago. The singer-songwriter for that, Jared Alonge, also has another project called Canadian Softball, and he's essentially the Weird Al Yankovic of pop punk and emo. And he has this album called Awkward and Depressed, and it's phenomenal. He incorporates a couple of songs here and there about Star Wars. One of them was called Rilo Ken, and it was written from the perspective of Kylo Ren and how it's one of the catchiest choruses you're ever going to hear, and it's about basically Kylo Ren dealing with Episode 7. And then he has another one that uses the dialogue from the opera scene in Episode 3, where Palpatine is explaining to Anakin about Darth Plagueis the Wise, and he makes like an emo song out of it using the literal dialogue. It's phenomenal. It's incredible. So the Canadian Softball, called the album Awkward and Depressed, very good. I highly recommend it. Speaking of other recommendations, don't forget to follow MindGap on all social medias at MindGap Podcast. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel where we post our full episodes there, as well as highlights from the shows and our streams. And don't forget to like and follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/MindGap Podcast. We live stream our episodes every Tuesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Central Time, so come hang out with us there. And Justin also exists digitally as well.
That's true on Instagram and Twitter at Justin_Michael, spelled Mikel. It's the fun way of spelling it. And while you're in the online realm, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Verbal, Podbean, all the places that you can find and consume the podcast. Give us a share, a like, subscribe, rate, review, all those things. The big one is sharing because it's caring. Copy the link, send it out, and let people know they should listen to us. It would mean the world to us. And then 2east8th.com/MindGap. And then just keep an eye on 2 East 8th's social stuff, because we got some good stuff coming up. We just hired a new salesperson, which is going to be awesome. Hopefully that'll get us some more gigs so we can do some more fun narrative stuff and keep you all entertained.
Nice. That's so exciting. So once again,
and
Rob,
if you have a video you need done, let us know.
Oh, and if anyone wants to become a podcaster, email me, rob@libsyn.com. R-O-B as in Robert, rob@libsyn.com. I can help get you started as a podcast.
Seriously, like just
email Rob. Yes. Just
talking to you about this, if hopefully you get inspired to do it, because Rob's advice to that, just do it, honestly. Like, don't worry about it. Just do it for fun. Make sure you're enjoying it, because that's also very important. If you're not enjoying it,
don't do it because we told you to do it, but do it because you want to.
Yeah, don't do a true crime podcast unless you're making fun of true crime podcasts.
In which case, then you're cool.
Everything else, every other subject, go for it.
No more true crime. Full up. No more.
Good Lord.
No more.
Well, with that being said, Rob, thanks so much for hanging out with us. This was an absolute delight.
Doug, Justin, thank you, gentlemen, so much for having me on the show.
Thank you, sir.
This was excellent. And Justin, to you, I say thank you.
Douglas, many thanks to you.
And to our Twitch, thank you.
Listeners, thank you.
And you all have a dandy fucking week.
MindGap Podcast.